You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
All right, Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. It's based on a trilogy of books called Detroit City of Champions, written by
Charles Avison.
I'm Jamie Flanagan, and we're just gonna talk about it. We're unpacking the story of the 1935 year, 33 championships in the city of Detroit, the state of Michigan. It was a beautiful time for sports in the city.
Greatest season in the history of American sports. I've said it. I don't even know how many times I've said it, but I've said it numerous times. Yeah. And the fact that we have an entire show based on one season.
Yeah.
We're either the most long-winded people ever, or there's actually so much content that we haven't even gotten through a fraction of it yet.
You're a little younger than I am, and I was really unaware of this story. And by the time we started, it's these people are gone. I mean, these champions are long gone because
exactly.
It was. So we're only looking back at history. But joining us, Tom.
Well, I was going to ask, what's this guy still doing sitting here? We're about to move on to the Red Wings. We're about to move on to hockey, and there's this guy here that we brought in for the Lions episodes and the Portsmouth Spartans episodes, and Jamie, what's this guy doing
Tom
still
is just
sitting
passionate.
here?
He's passionate about sports, and
he was a special guest once upon a time.
And
he's still here after like 10 shows.
I just love having Tom here.
Yeah, Tom's our friend. Tom's on the show. He's a regular, man. We were voting on it, and Tom's not a special guest anymore. He's a regular.
Whenever he wants to hang out,
spot. Absolutely.
He can hang out and listen, because that's all I do is I just sit and I listen to you tell the stories, because you've researched it, and that's a lot of what you did, Tom. You did a lot of research on the Lions part of it, and you're a big Tiger fan.
And Joe Louis, that's my specialty.
I can't wait to get you and Joe Louis Jr. 3 on a chat together here. I'm so looking forward to
that. Would be
we haven't even got to the Joe.
Whatever you do, don't miss that one.
So that's coming up.
Yeah, we haven't even got to the Joe Louis yet.
Yeah, so
that'll be Joe Louis part. That's going to be I can't wait.
That'll be after the third of the big championships. So the first was the Tigers, the second was the Lions, and then came the
tough thing, one of the
old time hockey. Put me in, coach.
Come the Red Wings, yeah. But the tough thing about this story is actually organized. Is actually kind of putting it. It all happens at the same time,
right?
So you have to kind of decide what order you want to tell the story, even though they all. I think it helps to give it. In the books, I wrote it from the perspective of Joe Louis first,
right,
and then the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings. That was the order because that's basically when they all. I timed it based on when their signature moment of each of the year came.
Okay.
But like I say, we're putting Joe Louis in after the championships, and I don't think you can go wrong because his story is it's almost kind of like a huge big hurrah.
Well, Joe carried the tradition after 35. He wasn't champion until 37.
Yeah.
But they always referred to him as the City of Champions, and he continued it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. But 35 is Joe's. I don't want to start going down that path because we'll start going down it, but. But 35. It's almost like we'll definitely focus on this component of the story when the time comes. But 35, a lot of times people just go, "Oh yeah, Joe Louis came. Detroit was a big year for Detroit or for Joe Louis in 1935," and then they start jumping into like the Max Schmeling fight and the championship fight, and then all the stuff that happened after. And it's like a lot of times, just like the rest of the 35 story, it gets skipped over and. Along that, that's a segue. I'm segueing using that into the story of the Red Wings because I say it in the book. The Lions were probably the most forgotten team, but like in modern day, like the Red Wings of 1935. As much as we celebrate the Red Wings are an iconic. We're a hockey town. The Red Wings are, synonymous with Detroit. It's one of the most proud hockey organizations in the NHL. It's a revered hockey organization. But of all the names and teams and players and faces of this huge, proud Red Wings history, none are as forgotten or unknown as the 1935 Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah.
And it's an absolute my goal for telling the story, and I'm really excited to be getting in the Red Wings. I'm really excited to get in all of it. But the Red Wings, it's just one of the most phenomenal stories that there is. I mean, like the most phenomenal hockey story, the most phenomenal sports story. You know, I mean, there's the screenplay for the movie. Like, I just can't wait to actually see this thing on the big screen and to see it bring out, because it's got every single component of every great. I mean, the whole City of Champions season does, but the Red Wings story is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's really unbelievable. And and I was telling you before we did the show, it merits, it's like a fine wine or like a fine whiskey or whatever like this. It merits, savoring it. It merits freaking enjoying every drop and really exploring this thing from the beginning all the way through what happened.
Because we said, how are we going to talk about this? Before we go to that, two things though. One, thank you for listening. People are
we got
checking in.
We got to talk to the view. Yeah.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us on this journey. If you haven't, if you just found us, subscribe to it. Like it. Tell a couple of friends.
Likes really help. Comments really help. Yeah. Sharing it. Every little thing helps.
Tell a couple of friends too. That helps as well. So thanks for helping out and being here and joining us on this journey. And last time we were together, I was teasing you guys about a comment that we got on one of our YouTube videos.
Yeah.
From a relative of one of the people we were talking about, and we'll get to that before the end of the show. So you got to stick around to find out who that was again. And we'll get into that before the end.
Sure.
But you and I, as we were talking about, what are we going to talk about when we talk about the Red Wings? I go, yeah, tell me, how do you want to talk about the Red Wings? So you were like, well, we got to talk about how the NHL was born first.
Exactly.
And so that's where you got to start. So we got to take it another step back.
So we got to take, it's really a couple steps back.
Yeah.
Because it's a step, like, the great, there's, the Red Wings, you have to start at the beginning, and I think it's worth it every once in a while to take a further step back, talk about the origin of the game itself, the origin of hockey, the origin, of the NHL, because the story of the Detroit hockey is somewhat inseparable from the genesis, the growth, the explosion of hockey in North America. It's inseparable. So. But you got to get to it first. There's much that happened before Detroit. Detroit was, and that's why really the first component. So to summarize what Jamie's saying is, we're going to start at the beginning. Yeah. On the first day there was light. This is like the genesis, like the beginning of hockey.
Sure. Take me back in time. Yeah. Where are we going?
The first thing that I want to tell the you guys and the viewing audience at home is this is a critically important concept to understand. Okay. Because whenever we're talking about the Detroit Red Wings, one of the first things that comes up is the words "original six."
Yeah, okay? and we talked.
We mentioned it once in this, but it's definitely worth putting into the context of this show. Mm-hmm. Is that's I call it a misnomer, okay? Because the original six, a lot of times we think of the original six, we think that the Red Wings were one of the six original hockey teams,
right?
And that's incorrect. It's as we're going to see, it's absolutely incorrect.
Is that post World War II?
Exactly.
So the original six is like a post World War II.
What happened was that hockey evolved, as we're going to see. The beginnings of hockey go all the way back, and we're 1892 is when it begins.
Mm-hmm.
So it. What was I going to say? What was I going to say, man? So it just goes back. So,
right.
But the misnomer is that the World War II and the Great Depression were such an upheaval. It was such an upheaval to hockey because hockey was incredibly unstable at this point, and so there was teams. So like there was teams folding left and right, and out of the after the Great Depression, after World War II, there was only 6 left. You see, and so when they say original 6, they're like, these are the 6 teams that survived the upheaval of the Great Depression and in World War II, and so that is what it's talking about. That's the misnomer. So it was original 6 in that context, and it refers to that 1950s era, because as we're going to see here, there was much hockey that took place before Detroit hockey came into play, and it's really the beginning of this story is the build up and the lead up to how the Detroit hockey was born. And it's so anyways, without further ado, one of the things I think I love about the early origin of hockey is that it was about the cup. In no other sport, like every other sport that's ever been out, like everybody wants to win the championship, of course. But in hockey, it was about the cup. You see, it was like there was so many different league champions. There's so many different leagues, amateur, professional. There was like a cauldron of all these different teams, and they all wanted the cup. And it was the cup that they all pursued. And it was the cup that was the fascination of these teams and players. And I actually wrote it into the screenplay of the movie. The very opening scene of the Red Wings of the Red Wings episode is the cup. Okay. That's all that it is. It's the opening scene because that is what these early hockey players craved. That is what there was something about that cup that drew these people on.
Well, there was a reason for that.
Well,
and the reason was they would get their name on it too.
Well, that was a big thing, absolutely. So we'll get to that point. Yeah. So, anyways, So the idea is that it starts with the cup, and the Stanley Cup is born. Is 1892 is Sir Frederick Arthur Stanley, Governor General of Canada, announced on March 18th, 1892, that he was going to be commissioning a silver trophy for the. And I'll actually read the quote. Actually, that's the first clip they have, Jimmy. I actually have it on my phone, so give me one quick second to grab it.
Sure.
So that's the first clip.
I love the pictures of the old Stanley Cup because you have this vision of the big barrel of the cup, and then the original cup attached to the top. But the very original cup was much skinnier.
Yeah, that's the first clip we have to put on the screen.
Skinnier creation.
Well, skinnier. You'll see much more. The very first cup. If you put that slide up, the first slide actually has a picture of Lord Stanley on it. You can see just how much skinnier the cup was. In fact, it was just the punch bowl from the top. That's all that the original cup was.
Do I have the right thing up there?
No, that's one of the last slides. Okay. So there we go, right there. But you can see that's the cup.
Yeah.
That was the original.
Sure.
All the bands that were added, I mean, the cup that they use now is not even the original. The original is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. But I want to read you. So here's the quote from when he first released this cup. This is actually Lord Stanley, his own words, talking about like his reasons for doing it. So he'd actually come. He is from England. He came to Canada to be the Governor General. Montreal was where it was based, where he was based, and he saw this. He fell in love with hockey when he came to Montreal, and so he says right here. So this is quote: "I have for some time been thinking that it would be a good thing if there were a Challenge Cup which should be held from year to year by the champion hockey team in the Dominion of Canada. There does not appear to be any such outward sign of a championship at present, and considering the general interest which matches now elicit and the importance of having the game played fairly and under rules generally recognized, I am willing to give a cup which shall be held from year to year by the winning team."
Oh.
So you can see that he commissions this cup towards an almost abstract, like just the goal of like the best team in Canada. Getting this trophy. And so he wasn't, I read that he wasn't even, so that just to let you know, the original cup in today's dollars would be about $1,400 is how much the original cup costs.
Okay.
A punch bowl, they call it a rose bowl, but you can see in the picture, it's a punch bowl. So the very first year, 1893, that they put this cup out, Lord Stanley wasn't even there. He actually got recalled back to England.
Oh.
And so he didn't even see the first Stanley Cup, right? Yeah. And so anyways, but he did leave a group called the trustees that were in charge of this. They were like basically it was left in their care to develop, what these challenges would be, the rules, all these different things. So in 1893, the first Stanley Cup, as it became quickly known, the Stanley Cup, Lord Stanley's Cup, or just Stanley Cup, it became known. I forgot the exact year, but it was early on, right around the same time that it's actually be called Stanley Cup or Stanley's Cup. So the trustees declared the top Montreal team the winner. There was two Montreal teams, and they fought it out, and then they declared one of those Montreal teams the winner of the cup.
All right.
Okay. And that's one of the second slides we have. You can see see this team just to show you real quick. But here's the thing. This is me telling you that this is the first team to win is more than just
there's the cup on the ground in front of them.
Exactly.
Oh,
this
that's great.
Is more than just filler, to say this, because the fact that the trustees were from Montreal,
yeah,
and they awarded the top Montreal team the cup.
Look at those mustaches.
Yeah. But
Aaron Rodgers, sit down.
So anyway, so here's the thing: is that the fact that these trustees awarded the cup to one of these Montreal teams, the trustees are from Montreal. This rankled Ottawa because they're like, Ottawa had no say. They didn't get to send their team to compete for it. And they're like, this cup was supposed to go to the top team in the world, in Canada. We're better than you are.
Yeah.
How'd you get the cup? We didn't get a chance to play for it.
Yeah.
You see what you see what I'm saying? That evoked competition, that cup. It was the cup which led them to say, we want to take that from you. You see what I'm saying? And so anyway, one of the things that's really interesting about this photo, I don't know if you can zoom in at all on it, but you'll notice on their chest, if you can see it closely, you see a winged wheel on their chest.
Oh,
that's really why I wanted to get that picture up there too. There is a winged wheel on their chest, and that team's name is the Montreal Winged Wheels. And so keep that in your brain because
it is. There's like two wheels. There's two wings on it.
There's two wings and a wheel on it. So just keep that in your mind because in three shows from now, that's going to become a very relevant concept.
Holy
okay,
smokes! All right.
Yes. So, anyways, that's why I love that photo too. I have not seen that one for some reason. I have pictures of their jersey, but I just hadn't seen that specific photo.
That's great.
So I was excited to get that on the show. Anyways, and with that challenge in mind, the following year, Ottawa is included. And so the best team from Ottawa is brought into Montreal. And they have a tournament. It's a 3-team tournament with 2 Montreal teams, one team from Ottawa, and Montreal wins it. Montreal wins the first Stanley Cup as we know it finals, and so Montreal once again wins it in 1894. So, anyways, over the course of the years, originally it was really like kind of an amateur concept, but in 1906, the cup became more and more sought after, and so these teams wanted to kind of, I guess you say, game the system. And they started bringing in the best players from other cities, paying them money to be on their team, and that's the rise of professional hockey is in pursuit. They want these cities and teams wanted the cup, and that begins in 1906. So the first pros are paid to become this, and the team that gets the very first team to have professionals on their team is the Montreal Wanderers in 1906. And so 1908, it almost becomes official. The Allen Cup is introduced for amateurs, and the Stanley Cup from now on going forward after 1908 is just for professionals.
Okay.
So that's, in 1910, the NHA is formed. It's a National Hockey Association. So because it had proved it was the best league in Canada by winning the cup 4 times in a row, right? And so just to give you an idea of some of the teams that were in the original NHA, the Cobalt Silver Kings, the Haley Berry Comets, Montreal Canadiens, Montreal Shamrocks, Montreal Wanderers, Ottawa Senators, and Renfrew Creamery Kings. So those are the first teams in the NHA. And then so they win 4 straight cups after they're formed, after the league is formed. 1915, there's another league out in the far west called the PCHA, which is the Pacific Coast Hockey Association. And their team in 1915, after a couple of negotiating, whatever like this, they sent one of their teams out to play against the NHA, and the Vancouver Millionaires from that Western League wins the cup. And they take the cup out west to Vancouver. So now the cup is gone. I mean, like now there's Montreal doesn't have the cup, Ottawa doesn't have the cup. It's gone from these eastern provinces. And it's taken out west. You see what I'm saying? So now it's becoming this thing where they're like, well, the cup started here.
How you doing, buddy?
We're no longer the best, league. The best league just took the cup, man. So the cup's gone. It's gone in the West.
It got transferred.
Exactly. So now, you can see the salivate, like they're like, man, we got to get the cup back, And the thing about it now is that the fact that a different league had taken the cup from the NHA, now they're like, well, how good is the NHA? They don't even have the cup anymore. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like some leagues, they would, a lot of times, like some whatever, like a hockey or football or baseball team.
Yeah.
There's 8 million leagues. There's 999 leagues in this country. and they play for 999 different trophies. You know, you see what I'm saying? And like, well, the NHL, do you think, how much more prestigious is them to say, well, it's okay, we can win our NHA championship.
Yeah, no.
Nobody cares about that.
Nope.
They care about the cup. You see
it.
what I'm saying? It's that you see it, but what I'm trying to show is how the cup, was the thing, and how that wherever the cup moves, the gravitational center of hockey, basically moves with it. And so it transfers out to, so the Vancouver Millionaires win it. In 1917, the Seattle Metropolitans become the first American Cup winner. They're from the PCHA. They're the Pacific Coast. So that, that West Coast Hockey League takes it back. So in 1916, it went back to the NHL, or I say NHA. And then 1917 went back out west. And then 1918, and this is where, the NHA becomes the NHL as we know it today. Okay. The name, the NHL. And the reason why, and this is something a lot of people may not know, is the NHA had an owner that the rest of the owners could not stand, named Eddie Livingston. And he had like a deal to be part of their league, and there was nothing that could break them off, like to get him rid of the league. And so they basically left him as a single team in the NHA and started their own league without him, which was the NHL.
Right.
Right. So they left him. They're like, "You want to be in the NHA?
We're
Fine.
taking our toys and going home."
There you go. So the NHL that's when the NHL is born. The NHL is born because they wanted to get rid of an owner they didn't like. So anyway, so 1922, a third league joins the fray called the Western Canadian Hockey League. But just a couple years later, 1925, it merges with that West Coast League, the PCHA, to form like a sort of a super league called the WHL, which is the Western Hockey League. This so in 1924-25, hockey seasons tend to gravitate over 2 years.
Right.
So 1924-25, this WHL, this Western Hockey League, Victoria Cougars win the cup, and they're the last non-NHL team to win the Stanley Cup. Oh. And they're, like I say, they're part of this WHL, which is this West Coast League, 1924-25. And keep the name in mind, Victoria Cougars, because it's about to become incredibly important.
Victoria Cougars.
Yes. So Victoria, British Columbia. Victoria, British Columbia. So like, the Western Canadian Hockey League is where this, where the Victoria Cougars were. And so anyways, the reason why this is important is because in 1924-25, something happens in the NHL which changes everything.
What's that?
Okay.
What happened?
They established a team in Boston. The Boston Bruins are established.
Is this the first one south of the border?
Well, no, we'd had the Seattle Metropolitans had won. They were the first, one of the first. I don't even want to say they're the first team. They that Western League might have had one or two. Okay. But this was the first like big city,
East Coast,
big city American, East Coast, big city, to have a hockey team. Yeah. And of course, hockey was still in its infancy as far as its popular support in 1924-25. However, even a third class hockey team in Boston is drawing more money than any other. They're drawing big dollars in America. They're drawing big money American dollars. Yeah. And that just like lit the spark because the very next year they bring in they bring a team to Pittsburgh. They bring a team to the original team Pittsburgh Pirates, and then the New York Americans. They bring a team to New York, and all of a sudden it's like game over because the NHL is like now. They're these teams that they're bringing in, they're using the fact that they're Eastern Canadian and they're going south into the American territory, south of their right there in their territory. Western Canada didn't have that; they didn't have this thing, and so the NHL just the money they're bringing in, the money they can pay their stars, all these stars are leaving the Western Hockey League, heading out to the NHL, and so the writing was on the wall, and in that Western Hockey League WHL, they fold. But before they do, and this is really where I wanted to get to for the entire show. Yeah. Right? Before they fold, it's 1920, it's post 1925, 1926. After that season's over, two of these Western Hockey League teams, the Portland Rosebuds and the Victoria Cougars, as we mentioned the Victoria Cougars already. Yeah. So as they're breaking up this league, they're selling the players off to the NHL. They're saying, like, we might as well sell the rest of them off and get whatever we can. The Portland Rosebuds are sold lock, stock, and barrel, $100,000. They're sold to a Chicago businessman named Major Frederick McLaughlin for $100,000. And he renames that team the Chicago Blackhawks. Okay,
the Blackhawks.
And then there's another team that's sold, as I already mentioned, the Victoria Cougars.
Yeah.
They're sold to a group of Detroit businessmen led by Detroit Athletic Club president Charlie Hughes for $100,000.
All right.
And that team will become the Detroit Cougars.
The Detroit Cougars.
So that's what's important to see here, and that's where the next slide comes up. So for anybody that can actually see the show.
I'm playing around here. All right, is this one?
Yep, there you go.
There we
so
are.
I've just got a couple of their logos on the screen, and it's the last team.
I love that vintage D, man.
Yeah, and so that you can see. So this is like the primer for like really everything that we're about to go into. The Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Cougars are both born. The Detroit hockey and Chicago hockey are both born in the same owners meeting, the same $100,000 franchise fee to buy the team.
Yeah.
They're born at the same moment. They both entered the NHL together. You see, like they weren't the Red Wings yet, but there was Detroit hockey. That was the direct descendant of.
Above and below. So you got the Victoria Pride
that's how
above,
I did that little screenshot there. That
and
little
then
design, yeah.
The Detroit Cougars below.
Yeah, it shows you the logo for the Victoria Cougars on the top,
Okay.
and then the Portland Rosebuds logos on the top, and then you can see the arrow pointing to the first. That was the last team for the Victoria Cougars, and the last team for the Portland Rosebuds, and the first team for the Detroit Cougars, and first team for the Detroit Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
So it's 1926-27 would be the first season for both of these two iconic teams. And and what I want to keep in to context for this, the reason why I wanted to really begin with this, it's cool to unravel the story of the NHL, but like I say, to see how it leads up to both of these teams both entering the NHL at the same time.
Yeah.
You see, they both came in there, and so like a lot of times, I've talked about. I think I've briefly talked about rivalries.
Yeah.
But rivalries in sports are just incredibly important, and a lot of times rivalries with these teams. A lot of times they think that it's just because you're close to it, like Detroit and Chicago are natural rivals, and that's true to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But in many cases, there's the proximity of it, just like all humans, especially as the current political environment we're going through now. But when people are like basically, just throughout the history of mankind, anytime you're anywhere in the same proximity as anyone, okay, like there's going to be friction, there's going to be different situations. And so, a lot of times the fact that they're nearby each other means they play each other more. There's more people having, conflict with two guys getting into a fight, and this leads to a thing that like a feud that lasts for years. It swallows the whole team in. As we're going to see in the ensuing episodes, these two teams come into the league together, and from this point going forward, there is going to be the escalation of feuds and the escalation of conflict. This is one of the greatest rivalry stories you will ever hear. And if you think that you're listening to this show right now, you're watching this right now, and you think that, there's Charles saying something bold again, like going a little bit too far, because I've heard a lot of great, the Avalanche and Red Wings were a tremendous rivalry.
Sure.
There's tremendous rivalries through the history of sports. Ohio State, Michigan, these are tremendous rivalries. But wait until you hear what comes next. Okay, this is like the fact that they both come in the league together is the mildest component of this.
Wow.
But the fact that they both come in the league together is like a certain symmetry that sets up, like I say, what's about to come in the ensuing episodes. And that's really what I wanted to get to for this. That's really what I wanted to get to is how these two teams both come in. But the key thing to understand, like I say, is McLaughlin, Frederick McLaughlin, and you're going to have to remember that name, Major Frederick McLaughlin. You're going to hear this guy's name over and over. Charlie Hughes, not so much, the guy that brought the first Detroit team in, but Major Frederick McLaughlin is going to be a key component. The owner of this Blackhawks team is going to be a key component of the escalating, blood feud, which is going to lead to, like I say, the 1935-36 Red Wings story is, it's got to be considered for one of the greatest rivalry dogfights of all time.
But we're still the Cougars. We still got a little ways to go before we're Red Wings.
We got a long ways to go before that. We're not going to go too much into the Cougars because it was an ugly few years for them to get off the ground.
That was not good.
No, the Cougars were not good. The Falcons were not good. The Blackhawks were pretty decent. They were okay. In their first few years in existence, but it's going to take a determined owner, with a grudge, to really, with some money and a grudge,
I like that,
to really pump some fuel into this rivalry, and that's I don't even think we're going to get to him necessarily. I think we're going to get into Norris and them in not next episode, but the episode after that potentially, because the next episode we're going to get into, like we did with Mickey Cochran and like we did with Potsy Clark with the Lions. Next episode we're going to be getting into Jack Adams. Because Jack Adams, of anyone out there is absolutely no one. Like I say, Charlie Hughes brought the Detroit hockey team, the hockey team to Detroit, but nobody should be like the father of the Detroit Red Wings. The title for that absolutely goes to Jack Adams.
Okay.
Yep. So
there was one more image in here. Did we need to touch on?
That's kind of like, I guess it was not an essential component. This is just a couple of the early hockey stars.
Okay. And these were the tobacco cards.
Exactly.
You get
I love
trading
tobacco
cards,
dude. I'm such a tobacco card. I love them. I love tobacco cards. You're going to see way more of these things. I actually made a gold medal plate with like 30 of these on them. Because I'm just such I have a bunch. I have these old T206 baseball cards. I love those old tobacco cards.
These are great drawings.
They're cool. Yeah, I mean, those are, you can see the date on 1911.
Yeah.
Those are a couple of some of the big stars from that time.
Okay.
Cyclone Taylor, Newsy Lalonde. Those two guys are like in the early days of hockey are like just absolute legends.
Okay.
I mean, they are like the Michael Jordans of that time. And then the bottom you have Frank and Lester Patrick, which are this shows them in their playing days, but they would go on to become massively influential.
They were legends.
Absolutely, yeah. And not just in fact, it was Lester Patrick that sold the Victoria Cougars to Charlie Hughes.
Oh.
He was the owner of that team and a player. And he sold them to them, made a bunch of money, and I forgot one of them went to it was either the Bruins or I forget. That's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
With those two brothers, but they were executives, they were coaches, they were executives. They were massively influential in the evolution of hockey.
They were the anchor.
Well, there were a couple of them. There was quite a few. You got Art Ross, you got all these guys from back then that are just, there's a reason why they were stars. They were, legends in their day. And then they just, it's kind of like the early history of baseball where you got a lot of these guys who are players, then they become coaches, they become executives, they become part of the building of the game. They just love the game so much that they led to its evolution from a a lot of times these guys, we look at baseball and a lot of these sports now, and it's just it's massive business. But the actual architects of the game and the systems the way that they are today are like completely different than the people that run the games now. Like back, a lot of these guys, and I'm not trying to gild the lily of yesterday saying, they didn't care about money. They didn't care about anything except for the game. I'm not going to try to go into that because I'm sure these guys cared. They wanted to make money. I mean, some of the first baseball teams were founded because the owner just wanted to sell beer, he knew that there'd be a lot of people and he could just bring beer into a stadium. So it's not. So I don't want to sit there and say, all they cared about was this. That's so trite. I can't even stand it because these players, they care about money. They care about money. I mean, they're not necessarily trying to get rich, but they get to do something they love and they get to make money at the same time. But at the same time, these are the type of these are the type of people that build these different sports that. They do love the game so much, and they believe in its future. They're at a time when the game is in its infancy, and they're trying to sell a product that they love. It's a different type of a person. These people that played the game, they worked in the game, and then they are the ones that are in charge of growing the game, and they became absolute legends as a result. And you got a few of the names, Newsy and that's Cyclone Taylor. They're more legends because of their playing ability, but the Patrick brothers were legends in all facets. As Jack Adams as we're going to see with Jack Adams, there was nothing that Jack Adams was not a legend at. I mean, it's like the honors that he has been given in hockey are minuscule compared to what he should have been given. He's almost the name Jack Adams is kind of remembered, and a lot of times people are going to remember Jack Adams because some of the stuff that happened in the the 50s and 60s with Gordie Howe and Ted Lindsay and stuff like this. But the Jack Adams that built this Red Wings team is sorely forgotten.
Okay.
I mean, it's sorely forgotten, and that's where we're going to pick up next week.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Now,
Happy Jack.
I teased people a little bit about something we talked about on the previous show, comments that were coming in. I want to thank Barbara for checking in so far today, and everybody who's been here.
Barbara.
Hey,
Thanks
Barbara.
for
That's what I said. Thanks for popping in. But we talked about, and it was a post about this guy that brought it up. Who's this guy up here?
Come on, man. That's my favorite player from the Lions. And from the Spartans is Glenn Presnell.
That's Glenn Presnell.
Yeah. He was the oldest living Spartan. He lived to be 99.
He was the oldest living NFL player at one point.
Right.
Overall, yeah.
The oldest living player in NFL right now is Cy Souders. And he's,
okay.
And I know him personally, and he lives in Sebring, Florida. He's 100 years old.
Really?
And he is the oldest Lion or professional from the NFL or NHL.
NFL, you got
NFL.
it. Yeah.
He's the oldest player, and he's still living, and I know him personally.
Man, I probably still won't want to mess with him. Like, he'd probably knock me.
He was the winner at the Ohio State first championship in 1942.
Okay, well.
And he's the only one still living. And when he goes to Columbus, they want him to dot the I.
Really? That's cool.
And he's very proud of that.
Well, I say he could probably knock me down because, I reference a story of my own, which I met Ted Lindsay up on Mackinac Island. I used to work up on Mackinac Island. I was a dock porter up there for 7 summers, and we were I'm in my young 20s. I'm a big, tough guy or whatever, And we're hanging down at the docks, and we're hanging out with a bunch of other. All we do is handle, today we drank, what was it? Tonight we, what was it? Tonight we drink, tomorrow we ride was our slogan. That's what people used to say. Tonight we drink, tomorrow we ride. And that was our slogan thing. So it's just a bunch of college guys up there. Anyways, we're on the dock this one day, and Ted Lindsay comes off the boat, or he's waiting for a boat. And we're talking to Ted Lindsay, and we're just it's not going too deep into anything, but he's just talking to us or whatever. And anyways, he gets on the Arnold ferry line and to take off, and one of the guys in the group that I'm with, he goes, "Man, that guy could still kick my butt, man. That guy, I don't care how old he is. I'm still kind of scared of that guy." That's what I'm referencing when I say that guy. Some of these guys from back in the day, those guys are tough. It don't matter how old they are.
That was my era. And when you get to Jack Adams, I'll tell you some stories that Gordie Howe told me on Jack Adams.
I love it.
It's beyond your imagination.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is that there's the Jack Adams, and I'm familiar with the Jack Adams of the 50s and 60s because it's a little outside the scope of the show. We can mention it, but the idea is that there's sort of two different Jack Adams. There's the Jack Adams from the early 20s and 30s that built this Red Wings club that was just obsessed with winning, somewhat guarded about the future of his job because he's on a 1-year annual contract. Every year was a year. It was a year-to-year deal, and he was on the 1-year deal for 20-something years. He had to prove himself every single year. And so he was somewhat defensive about, it was just a raving. I mean, it was like a Ty Cobb obsession to win. There was that Jack Adams who, in the early days, built the club as a result of that obsession to win. And then there was the Jack Adams of the 50s and 60s who was still had that obsession to win, but he was almost became a bit, he by that point the organization had been built, and he was like a king that was in charge of a kingdom that was no matter how many Stanley Cups he won, no matter how many championships he won, no matter how many amazing players he found, he still wanted more, and he was almost like an obsessive pursuit. And in this case, he was fairly secure in his job, and he could just get rid of people and do whatever the heck he wanted to do. So there's sort of two different Jack Adams, and the one that a lot of people remember is the Jack Adams from the 50s and 60s, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. Absolutely. All
right, but on the screen, if people watching the video or the audio, there's a picture of Presnell up there. And in episode 18, we were talking about the Portsmouth Spartans coming to Detroit and becoming the Detroit Lions. We had Will Malt on with us. Yeah. Tom was here telling us about that transition from Portsmouth to the Tigers, and what came up was the uniform and the colors, and the how the colors were picked. And Tom, you had a story, I believe, that you shared, or was that you?
I think we both did. 'Cause it's kind of the same story where Presnell is.
So now Glenn you guys thought Glenn picked the colors, and then there's a comment on our Facebook on the YouTube video, and it's from Mike Presnell.
Well, I do want to hedge my bet. I want to hedge that with something and say that I did see something in I think it was even an unpublished memoir by Abby Kushner,
right,
that said that it was also that he had also run the colors past. We're talking about George Richards for the Lions owner,
right,
that he had run the colors past his daughter as well.
Yep.
And that his daughter had also, I don't know if it was his daughter first, and then he showed the same group of various jersey colors to Presnell, and he chose them, and they both
Sure.
chose the same. But the story from that I believe that I think I got it from Abby Kushner was that George Richards' daughter was also one of the people that had
helping
been
pick
mentioned.
the colors.
Exactly. So I'm hedging that exact
All right.
thing.
So
It's
but
not-
we talked about that.
Yes.
And then Mike Presnell comments on the YouTube video, and he said, Glenn is my first cousin, one generation removed. And I'm like, oh my God, that's
Yeah,
cool.
that's
So
cool,
a family
yeah.
member. That's
Yeah.
really cool. He said, late in your podcast, you were discussing the selection of the Detroit colors. Glenn told me while I was visiting him at his home in 2002 that he and his wife, Catherine, were visiting George Richards, the owner, in his office. Richard had a number of samples laid out in the office, and it was Catherine that told George Richards, to go with the Honolulu blue. So Glenn credits the decision to Catherine. And
that's
so
a whole-
you knew Catherine
there
as
you
well?
go.
I never met her.
Oh, fair play.
No. And
Okay.
I never. And
Will
I,
Malt might have known her though, because he was
Will
friends with all of them.
Malt.
Yeah.
Will would know though.
Yeah.
That was his
Yeah.
closest
Yeah,
friend.
yeah. So now we've got a third potential possibility
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that there was because
Glenn and Catherine helped in the
exactly that Catherine,
decision.
not only Catherine, I don't know if there's like a like some kind of like Confucius say, like like one of those like sayings or whatever. This is like sometimes you got to listen to the woman. When she says something, you just got to go with it.
Yeah.
Happy wife, happy life type thing.
So that's it.
So like maybe there was something involved with that in there where Glenn was like, well, Glenn, what do you think? He's like, I go with her.
Yeah.
She's right. Great
Well,
colors.
we know it took place in the Fisher Building.
Yes.
There we know that we know that.
there we
We
go.
got
So-
those details. But that's an interesting little side,
So
side
we
note
want to
that.
thank Mike for commenting
Yeah,
on the YouTube video
absolutely.
and for listening, and for everybody who is listening to the podcast. We appreciate you spending some time with us as we go through these stories. I'm enjoying the heck out of it, and we're going to do some more next time. The website is just Detroit City of Champions. You can get the books there.
Yeah, all kinds
there's
of
some
merchandise
there's
stuff,
some
yeah.
other like hidden gems. There's that play ball video that comes with book number 2.
Yep, exactly.
There's another video. There's another
T-shirts,
DVD.
hoodies, and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. So,
Yeah.
Detroit City of Champions, and on Facebook as well. We throw things up there, and when the video goes
And
live,
also too is
it's live there.
I'm in these. There's these. We have these stores in the mall, and this is
Yeah.
like where I do a lot of my work because I actually sell my product in these stores, and you're actually going to find me just kind of hanging out in the mall. It's I actually get quite a bit of work done in a mall on a slow day.
Yeah.
And so I kind of hang out. It's almost like an office. I talk about sports all day with people. It's crazy. Tom comes in there every once in a while. Tom will pull up a chair and hang out for a half hour or so.
Nice.
And so, anybody's listening to the show, if you're ever at Laurel Park Mall in Livonia or 12 Oaks Mall in Novi or Partridge Creek in Clinton Township, the store is called Inspire Marketplace. It's like a year-round indoor Michigan.
You kind of bounce between the three of them.
Yeah, I bounce. I'm mostly at Laurel Park. Probably going forward in March, April. Going forward, I'll probably be in 12 Oaks most of the time. It's set, like weekends, like Saturdays, I'm at Partridge Creek.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. We talk sports in there. It's like a little sports haven. It's almost like a barbershop type thing, but it's like an art show. Like
love
when
it.
people at barbershops talk about stuff.
Yep.
It's kind of like that. We pontificate about philosophy and stuff. We talk about whatever. So. But anyways, it's like a year-round indoor art show. There's all, anybody's looking for a gift for somebody. Maybe I should have been talking about this more before Christmas. But it's a great little spot. You come in there, visit me. You want to talk, you want to get the book or, get measured for a shirt or a hoodie or whatever.
There you are.
The measurement is like XL, large, double X. I didn't measure it with a measuring tape. It's you just pick out a shirt and give me
Hold that up
$25.
to you. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good.
Yeah.
Taking that home with you. All right.
What you pointing at?
The picture there, that of the Lions.
Oh yeah.
of
Well,
the
Tom. Yeah,
Spartans.
Tom brought us the
That's
Tom.
that's the original Spartans right there. Since we were talking about Glenn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where's Can we
There's
throw
a-
this up this camera? So
that
Tom
camera's there.
Tom brought these in. This is original. This is a picture. It looks like we were looking at it pretty closely the other day.
Yeah.
It's a photo that somebody gave him a while back. That's from Portsmouth. That is,
90,
it's
91 years old.
Yeah, so this is the first. This is the lineman from the first. That's we were able to track it out because it doesn't have Presnell, it doesn't have Dutch Clark or anybody in it, but it does have. It's all offensive linemen. It does have Claire Randolph. It's got all the main guys on it. Harry Ebding, Christensen, Tarzan Christensen's on it. They're all there. Oh, yeah. It's got all the main linemen, which is cool. It must have taken like I say, there's probably a companion photo of that was like all the backs, with all the where it was just the backs, because looks like I say all just the linemen, because I can't think of any reason in the world why you wouldn't have Dutch Clark or
I think it goes right back to 1930. Really.
No, this got I think it's when we say it was Potsy's first year, 19. What was it? What is it?
32, I think.
No, he was earlier than that.
You mean the coach, Potsy?
Yeah.
He came in 31, I think.
Yeah, 31. That's what I'm saying. This is I think Potsy's first year because George Christensen was a rookie. Potsy's first year was George Christensen's first year. So you can't put George before Potsy. And so whatever year no matter what year it was, it wasn't before Potsy was there. That's what I'm saying. And so it's got George Christensen, and these guys that were not there before Potsy. So that's what I'm saying. At the very least, it was
that
Potsy's
picture
first
came
year.
from a lady that watched and went to many a Spartan game, and she held on to that picture for almost 90 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so she might have taken it. I mean, what are they? I mean, they don't just hand out photos there.
Yeah, yeah.
She must have just. She might have taken
it. It wasn't bobblehead night.
Yep.
It's
Bob Morton gave that to me, and like I said, the ladies, when she gave it to him to give it to me, she said those were my.
And
Spartans,
Bob Morton's worth mentioning, giving a little bit of a note to. Bob has passed, but Bob Morton is an absolute legend, and Bob
the
Morton
head of the murals.
Yeah, Bob Morton did a lot for Portsmouth, to remember the Spartans, for sports, sports history in Portsmouth is just an absolute icon. So
and he loved baseball.
Big time. He sent me an article about I did an interview for that newspaper down there about bringing a baseball team down there. He's the one that sent us the newspaper article. He sent it in the mail.
Yep.
Yeah. No. So yeah, he's Bob's awesome. He was. To rest in peace. He was awesome, man. Yeah.
He was my connection in Portsmouth. I mean, I got all the information, and I was introduced to him, and I spoke at his Rotary Club on the Spartans.
Yeah. No, he was cool. Yeah. So just good to mention, get his name out there a little bit. Yeah.
Yep. All right. More hockey next time, and we'll be back with more Detroit, the City of Champions.